hitter, Maley the catcher, and Gabriel Arias.
The Indians, just looking at some of their prognostications and people around them, is that, they have maybe a couple of question marks in the corner outfield. So they've got a couple of youngsters that, they're under the spotlight and trying to earn a spot.
Bradley swings and misses. It's 0-1. Now, we give you advance warning. We will inadvertently address the Cleveland Club as the Indians because that's what they've been for a century. This is their first year as the Guardians, and so if it slips out, it slips out. It's not intentional.
That's Charlie Steiner. He's a longtime sports broadcaster and one of the current TV and radio broadcasters for the Los Angeles Dodgers. The team the Dodgers are facing in this game are the Cleveland Guardians, formerly known as the Cleveland Indians. Back in July of 2021, Cleveland's ownership group announced that they would no longer don the insensitive moniker of the Indians, and henceforth wear the name Guardians on their jerseys. Look, it's not my place to explain to the audience why the name needed to be changed. Shortly put, civil society has agreed that the time was long overdue for sports teams and media brands to forfeit their claims on any culturally sensitive nomenclature that exploits the history of indigenous groups of North America, all for the sake of naming a sports team or brand. For example, the Washington Redskins became the Washington Football Team before ultimately becoming the Washington Commanders, and public pressure has ensured that the Indians would follow suit, resulting in a name change for Cleveland's baseball team for the first time since the early 1900s. That leads us back to Charlie Steiner. Steiner became a well-known commentator within the sports world when he became a SportsCenter anchor for ESPN in 1998, as well as doing radio for the Yankees in the early 2000s. Now look, I don't want to disrespect the man's career. He was doing a lot of radio and TV long before that, but that's when he became more well-known to a mainstream audience. He joined the Dodgers in 2005 to be a part-time radio and TV announcer, essentially a fill-in on days that Vince Scully was not available. Charlie was hired to work alongside the other voice that we hear in this video, longtime Dodgers play-by-play man and former Dodgers player Rick Monday, who I think personally gets a little annoyed with Charlie in this video, trying to correct and call Charlie out without fully putting him on blast on national television. So last week, the Dodgers and Guardians squared off for a spring training game in Glendale, Arizona, and in the second inning, with Dodgers star Clayton Kershaw on the mound, something happens that I couldn't resist but make a video about.
The Indians, just looking at some of their prognostications and people around them, is that, they have maybe a couple of question marks in the corner outfield.
Now, we give you advance warning. We will inadvertently address the Cleveland Club as the Indians because that's what they've been for a century. This is their first year as the Guardians, and so if it slips out, it slips out. It's not intentional.
While doing some analysis of the game, Rick Monday accidentally refers to the Guardians as the Indians. Steiner immediately clarifies and gives an explanation to the audience that, considering this is the first year in over 100 years that Cleveland's baseball team is not being referred to as the Indians, it might take some getting used to, and they might occasionally get it wrong from time to time and accidentally let Indians slip out. Totally reasonable. It's still weird for me to see Guardians on Cleveland's jerseys. So no harm, no foul if that's the case. So long as they're making a clear and obvious effort that they're actually trying to call them by their correct name. But that's not quite what happens next.
213 games, over 500 are the Dodgers under Dave Roberts. First base runner for the Indians, the walk from Kershaw to Maley. Arias came in the trade for Mike Clevenger. And one of the areas in which the Indians are relatively deep are young infielders. So after the walk, a single for Arias, and the Indians have runners at the corners with one out.
That is not a good feeling.
Well, the Indians, with a paper-thin roster, can ill afford injuries. Clement with a double to left. Naylor scores, Arias scores, and the Indians have a 2-1 lead. As Kershaw gives up two hits and a walk. Indians 2-1. We go to the bottom of the second. Kershaw Kershaw gave up a couple of runs, a couple of hits, and a walk in the top half of the second after retiring the Indians in order on 9 pitches in the first. A walk-on at Santa Barbara to a 4th-round pick of the Indians in 2016. And in 2020, Cy Young Award winner. Did I say Indians again?
Well, he was with the Indians.
Yes. The team formerly known as the Indians. All of us is going to take some time. Kershaw retired the Indians in order in the first, striking out Zimmer and finishing off Franmil Reyes with a strikeout. 8th-round pick of the Indians. Oh, got it again. Got to throw a quarter into the jar.
Charlie calls them the Indians 10 times in an inning and a half span after making that statement. You get the feeling like the producers were probably getting a little annoyed with him at a certain point. And as I mentioned earlier, even Rick Monday seems to get a little bit annoyed.
8th-round pick of the Indians. Oh, got to throw a quarter into the jar.
May I offer you some advice?
Yes, sir.
If you're going to go a quarter for every time, just put a $20 bill in there.
So they start doing this like little bit about how he has to put money in the jar every single time that he says it, just as a way to prevent him from saying it. It's one thing if a random fan or player makes the mistake in mid-conversation, but it's another thing entirely that the announcer of the game, who is the voice that we hear on the telecast, he is essentially the voice of the game itself. He is conveying information to the audience. So he or she is responsible for how the game is consumed by the audience at home. So he needs to show that he is actually trying and that the name change actually matters. Because if you're just constantly making the quote-unquote mistake and keep trying to qualify the idea of calling them by their actual name as if it's something that is hard to do or hard to get used to, then you're projecting that onto others. If the Dodgers broadcaster has trouble accepting it, then it's less of an incentive for people at home or myself to accept it. Maybe Steiner felt like it made for better television to keep getting it wrong. Nothing malicious there, but he just kind of wanted to turn it into a bit. And I guess the bit is that he's just struggling with the name change, so he's going to keep saying it and going, oh, gosh darn it, I have to put another quarter in the jar. Rather than just saying the name, Guardians, every single time that you say the name Indians so that you get used to it and just adapting to it. Not drawing attention to it isn't as exciting for a television broadcast, but it does help the people at home accept it as the new normal. Because Charlie is a professional broadcaster. He knows what he's doing. He's been doing this for so long that there's no way that he wasn't aware of how many times he was saying the wrong name. Look, I'll put it into terms that people might understand where it doesn't come off like I'm being super woke or politically correct. Look at it this way. When a building's infrastructure deteriorates, or you find out later on that the building was built on a fault line, sometimes you need to remodel or rebuild. Change is a good and necessary thing from time to time. As we learn more, or as things break down, or as we start to collectively realize that the natives of this country should have never been called Indians in the first place because Christopher Columbus didn't discover India, he discovered America, and that the entire indigenous population of America never referred to themselves as Indians in the first place, so we probably shouldn't be calling them Indians 500 years later. The point is, as we learn new information or realize things need to be fixed, it's okay to make a change. It's how we progress as a society. But that also requires effort from the people who are the voice or face of long-standing enterprises, people in positions of power, people who have a voice, to participate in the implementation of these changes without acting as if it's something that's hard to do. If you convey as if it's an easy thing to do, people will receive it as if it's an easy thing to do. At the end of the day, I don't think Charlie Steiner's a bad guy. I think he had a bit in mind after being told by producers or whoever that they needed to stop saying Indians and decided to roll with it for a few innings. This guy really could not stop saying Indians.
You want to stand up there a long time and say, hey, look, I'm going to let this guy throw his entire repertoire.
Fastball whacked off to the right and out of play. Fastball whacked off to the right and out of play. The Indians last year, 2 games under 500. First base runner for the Indians. The Indians 2-1. The Indians. Clase is the 4th Indians of the quarter. Owen Miller, the first baseman of the Indians of the quarter.
He's the 6th Indian Guardians pitcher.
I mean, by my count here, he says it 16 times to 4 times saying Guardians. I might have that wrong, but I mean, we're talking like it's a 4-to-1 ratio of him saying Indians to saying Guardians. I do think after the 3rd inning, every time he said it was an accident. He just genuinely couldn't stop. But by the end of the game, he would correct himself when he would slip up. And he even finally starts to get the hang of it at a certain point in the 8th inning.
Carson Taylor's second at-bat of the day.
You can do it, Charlie. You can say it.
The Guardians.
Let's go! Attaboy, Charlie. Bravo! So proud of you, man. So here we go. With the final out, you've ended on a good note. You're calling them the Guardians. You understand what you need to do. End this game with a bang. End this game the right way. Be the change you want to be.
Bases all in all, a good day for the Dodgers. Their first win of the spring. We're just 2 weeks from Friday. It's opening day. That's a wrap for us. Final score. Dodgers 6 runs and 9 hits. The Indians 2 runs and 7. Back with you tomorrow.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me? Charlie!
Ow, Charlie!
On the final out of the game, you end the broadcast calling them Indians? Oh, it's not that hard. This fucking guy. Look, I guess it's okay. It's not like there's some problematic video of you on the internet wearing a headdress or Native American face paint or anything like that. What's that?
With the year 2000 approaching, we're trying to make sure the software here at SportsCenter is Y2K compliant.
Y2K test in 3, 2, 1.
Oops.
More from the NBA and an NFL trade right after this.
We definitely have a few bugs to work out, but we'll be ready.
Follow me! Follow me to freedom!
Let's just give him the benefit of the doubt and say it was a Braveheart reference. If you liked this video, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. It really helps with this stupid algorithm that we have from Google.